One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Clint handed her a folded page, a drawing. It was of the ranch, not how it looked now, but how it might look one day. Green, wide, alive. Tayen smiled, and for the first time, so did Clint. Opening hook. Montana Territory, 1875. The wind moves like a ghost over the blackened prairie. Burned grass sways in the bitter breeze, whispering secrets of things lost and never found. Far off, crows circle something unseen, scavengers of silence. Clint Mercer rides alone. A worn coat flaps around his tall frame, patched and frayed at the elbows. His horse limps beneath him, ribs visible. The land around him is sun-starved, scarred by fire and frostbite. Even the sky looks tired, low, gray, and wide open. He's not riding for hope, just mending fence. That's all life's become, patching what falls apart, trying to keep the rot from spreading. Clint is 42, weathered like old barnwood. He doesn't talk much anymore, not since the war, not since they killed his family. And then he sees it. A figure sways from a tree up ahead, limp, motionless. He rides closer, rifle ready, breath shallow. But it's no corpse. A child. A girl. An Apache girl. She hangs by her wrists, feet barely brushing the ground, body trembling with the last ounce of strength. Her skin's lashed. Her dress is torn. Above her, nailed to the tree, is a crude plank, burned into it with black pitch. White man don't forgive. Man versus man and suspicion. Clint dismounts slowly, cautiously. She growls, a sound not meant for language. Her face is bloodied, one eye swollen shut, but the other is sharp, alert. He takes a knife to the rope. She kicks, spits, tries to bite. Clint grits his jaw. He's seen this kind of fear before. Soldiers used to look that way when the shelling started. "It's all right," he says low. "I ain't the one who did this." The rope snaps. She falls into his arms, fists still swinging. Her body is fever-hot and far too light. He wraps her in his coat, shielding her from the cold wind. Boot prints surround the tree. Big ones. Heavy. Spurs etched into the dirt. More than one rider. Judging by the size and angle, they weren't just dumping her. They stayed a while. Maybe watched. He stares down the trail the prints lead off into. Not bounty hunters. Worse. Men with no law and no God. He looks back at the girl. Her eyes flutter closed, but her chest rises. Still alive. "Come on," he mutters. "We ain't safe out here." He lifts her into the saddle, climbs behind, and rides, bringing her in. The wind howls harder by the time they reach the homestead. 3 buildings and a barn, all in various stages of collapse. The fence is barely standing. The roof leaks. The porch tilts to one side like it's too tired to hold itself up. Clint carries the girl inside. The cabin smells of wood smoke, dust, and loneliness. A single lantern burns. A Bible lies unopened on the table. Next to it, a revolver. He lays her on the cot near the stove, lights a fire, and offers water in a chipped tin cup. She flinches, doesn't drink. He sets the cup down and backs away. He gives her space. She drinks when he isn't looking. That night, she curls up under the wool blanket like a wounded coyote. Never really sleeps. One eye always open. Clint watches from his chair by the door, rifle across his lap. He thinks of riding to town. Sheriff in Cold Hollow might take her in, but he also might not. Out here, Apache girls don't get trials. They get shot. He scratches his beard and mutters, "Damn fools. She's just a kid." Clint's past unearthed. Smoke rises from the chimney as dawn breaks. The cold lets up, but Clint's mind doesn't. He steps outside and walks to the cottonwood behind the barn. 2 crude wooden markers sit beneath it. One reads, "Clara Mercer, wife, Heart of the Valley." The other, "Joshua Mercer, son, Only 9. He kneels there a while. The memories are not kind. Post-war hatred had no limits. A Cherokee woman and a half-blood boy weren't welcome in the new frontier. Not even after Clint fought under the Union flag. Not even after the blood he spilled for people who called him savage lover. He came home to smoke and screams, buried them both with his bare hands. Since then, he's spoken to no one who didn't sell supplies or threaten him. Until today, until that girl in the tree, he turns back to the cabin, back to the living. The girl's first words. That evening, as the sun sinks behind the hills, he finds her sitting on the floor by the stove. She's no longer trembling. Her eyes are calm now, watchful. He slides a bowl of beans toward her. She eats slowly, methodically. Every bite is a gift. Then she speaks, low, gravel-thick, like someone forcing English through broken glass. "You kill me now." Clint stares. "No," he says. She points at the revolver on the table. "White man, kill what he fears." Clint's jaw tightens. "Not today. Not ever." She studies him a long moment, as if measuring the truth of his words. Then she says something in Apache, soft, almost a prayer. He doesn't understand it, but it settles in the room like a blessing or a curse. He nods. "What's your name?" She pauses. "Tayen." Clint extends a hand, but doesn't reach, just holds it in the air. She doesn't take it, but she doesn't recoil either. Small victories. Cliffhanger. That night, the fire crackles. Tayen sleeps beneath the old quilt, breath even and calm for the first time. Clint sits in the rocking chair, staring into the dark. Then a sound. Hooves. A lone rider moves across the distant ridge, stops, watches the cabin, then disappears into the night. Clint doesn't move, just reaches slowly and pulls the rifle into his lap. Winter swept across the prairie like a pale ghost, dragging silence and frost in its wake. The days grew shorter, the nights longer, crueler. The wind howled through every crack in the ranch house like it was searching for something. Tayen stayed. She no longer flinched when Clint approached. She helped haul feed to the barn, chopped kindling, swept the porch with a makeshift broom. She spoke little, but she watched, listened, learned. One morning, Clint found her in the barn, carving into the wall with a nail. Apache symbols, lines, circles, sharp arcs. Her fingers moved like someone writing scripture. He didn't ask what it meant. But one symbol she pointed to. A broken arrow. "Means vengeance," she said, "but also protection." He nodded. He understood both. Too well. For the first time, she asked his name. He hesitated, then answered, "Clint." She repeated it like testing a new word. Soft, almost respectful. At night, they sat by the fire, not speaking. But the silence was different now. Not cold, not empty. It was the kind shared between people who had buried too much to talk and survived too long to pretend. Clint couldn't sleep most nights. The walls creaked with memory. He'd stare into the fire and hear his wife's voice, Clara, calling from the cottonwoods. Sometimes he'd hear Joshua's laugh, light and high-pitched, like it used to echo through the valley in springtime. He never answered. Ghosts don't ask for conversation. But Tayen noticed. She saw the way his hands shook when he poured coffee, the way he walked the fence line 3 times a night, as if guarding graves instead of cattle. Then one morning, she placed something in his palm. A necklace, rough, made of tiny bones and carved with strung on a sinew cord. "My people give this," she said, "to those who carry ghosts." He looked at it, touched the bones. Rabbit, maybe. Bird, not for fashion. For meaning. He clenched his jaw. "What do your people say about ghosts?" Tayen stared into the snow falling beyond the window. "Ghosts don't leave," she whispered. "But sometimes they follow you for a reason." He didn't ask what that reason was. Instead, he wore the necklace. Didn't matter what it meant. Only that someone gave it to him. He hadn't been given anything in a long, long time. That night, he stood over the graves again, and for the first time in years he said their names out loud. They came just after midday. 5 riders, dark shapes against the horizon, moving slow and wide, like wolves in formation. Clint saw them from the porch and knew before they spoke that trouble had arrived. They wore army coats, but their faces were wrong. Too smug, too scarred. Men who'd worn uniforms once, but now wore them like trophies. The leader rode tall and loose in the saddle, a long rifle across his lap, and a smile that never reached his eyes. He tipped his hat. Afternoon. Clint didn't return the gesture. I'm looking for someone, the man said. Apache girl. About so high. He held up a hand. You seen anything like that? Clint stared at him a long while. No, he said. Ain't seen a soul in weeks. The man smirked. Name was Reed Claiborne, an ex-scout, just like Clint. He even had the same faded blue tattoo under his collar. A Union star. Brotherhood once. Now not so much. You got that look, Mercer. The kind of man who knows where bodies are buried. I'm not your problem, Clint said quietly. Reed leaned in his saddle. I ain't looking for problems. I'm offering a deal. Give us the girl. You walk away clean. Clint said nothing. Reed leaned back and nodded. All right. Be seeing you soon. They rode off. Not far. Camped just out of rifle range. Waiting. Clint didn't say much that night. Just handed Tayen a rifle. It's time, he said. She didn't ask what for. She already knew. They spent the next day setting traps, trip lines, hidden nails, bottles rigged to shatter and worn. Clint showed her how to clean the gun, load it, fire once, then again, until the motion felt like breath. She learned fast. Where'd you learn to shoot? He asked. She shrugged. My uncle hunted bison, said eat or die. I learned. She hesitated, then added, I don't like killing, but I don't like dying more. He smiled. Just a little. First time in weeks. At dusk, she lit a lantern inside the house and left it burning. A trick. A lure. He watched her from the porch. She moved like a shadow now. Sharp. Focused. For a moment, he didn't see the girl from the tree. He saw a warrior. And something inside him, long buried, stirred again. Snow fell soft and heavy, covering the traps, the blood in the soil, the broken past. Clint sat on the porch, sharpening his knife with slow, deliberate strokes. Tayen leaned against the doorway, cleaning her rifle. She watched him for a while, then asked, You afraid? He shook his head. No. I've already lost everything I feared losing. She nodded. I won't let them take you, he said after a pause. Tayen looked out at the falling snow. They already took everything, she whispered. I fight now. Their eyes met. No tears, no speeches, just understanding. The wind carried the silence between them like a promise. That night, the prairie screamed. The wind howled across the broken land. And far out, beyond the fence, a single gunshot rang out, followed by the terrified shriek of a horse. Tayen stood at the window. One of Reed's men wasn't coming back. And tomorrow, the rest would ride for war. Dawn broke, with the sound of hooves and gunfire. They came in fast, Reed and the remaining 4 riders, rifles blazing, war cries echoing over the frozen prairie. But Clint had turned his ranch into a fortress. The first rider charged straight into a wire trap, yanked from his saddle, and crushed against a fence post. The second took a bullet from Tayen's rifle, clean shot to the chest as he tried to flank the house. Smoke curled from the barn as another man, lured by the lantern, stepped into a spiked pit. His screams didn't last long. Tayen crouched behind the trough, blood trickling down her arm where a bullet had grazed her shoulder. She didn't cry, just kept firing, reloading, ducking. Clint moved like a ghost through the yard, rifle slung, knife ready. His coat flared in the wind as he took cover by the well, exchanged fire, and brought down another rider with a sharp crack to the neck. 2 left, then 1, then silence, only the wind, and Reed's slow, steady footsteps crunching through the snow. Clint met him near the cottonwoods, near the graves of Clara and Joshua. It was fitting, a place of endings. Reed dropped his rifle, drew a long hunting knife. "Come on then, Mercer. Let's finish this." Clint didn't speak, just pulled his own blade from his belt. They circled each other like wolves, then lunged. Steel flashed. Blood sprayed. Reed's knife found Clint's ribs. Clint's blade tore across Reed's thigh. They staggered, circled again. "You're fightin' for a girl who ain't your blood," Reed growled, spitting blood into the snow. "She's Apache, Mercer, worth less than a mule. Why die for her?" Clint, bleeding from the mouth now, locked eyes with him. "Because I didn't die for the ones who were." He moved with the last of his strength, drove the blade into Reed's gut, twisted and shoved. Reed gasped, choked, fell to his knees, and died face down in the snow, just yards from the graves he'd mocked. Clint dropped beside a tree, gasping, his hands red and shaking. But he was alive. Tayen found him slumped in the snow. She dropped her rifle, ran to him, and tore a strip from her skirt to bind the worst of the wounds. Her fingers worked fast, steady, silent. The house was half-burned, smoke curling from broken windows. The barn had caved in. The well was black with blood. The horses were gone, spooked or taken. But they were alive. They were together. Clint leaned against her, eyes closed. "We win." She nodded. "You killed the devil." He gave a weak laugh. "I don't feel like I won." She didn't argue, just tightened the bandage and whispered, "Rest." For once, he did. 2 days passed. No more riders came. They buried the dead far from the house. All but Reed. Tayen insisted on burying him near the cottonwoods, beside the tree where she had once hung like a warning. Clint stared at her, confused. "Why there?" She looked out across the field, cold wind in her hair. "So he can see what mercy looks like." He blinked, taken aback. "You sure?" She nodded. Clint helped dig the grave. Quiet, no prayers. After, they sat beneath the same tree, shoulders touching. "You could leave," he said softly. "We could. Head west. There's land. Mountains. No one asks questions out there." She didn't answer right away. Then, "You ever stop running?" He looked at the horizon, then back at her. "Not until you're too tired to keep going." She nodded, but she didn't pack, and neither did he. Spring came slow. Tayen planted corn near Reed's grave, said the earth would grow better if it remembered. Clint taught her to read. She picked it up quick, sharp mind, sharper memory. They rebuilt the barn, the porch, the coop. The cottonwoods bloomed again, and laughter, soft, rare, but real, returned to the house. The bone necklace no longer hung from Tayen's throat. It now rested above the door, a symbol not of ghosts, but of survival, of chosen family. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Clint handed her a folded page, a drawing. It was of the ranch, not how it looked now, but how it might look one day. Green, wide, alive. Tayen smiled, and for the first time, so did Clint.